As we launch the Building Africa report, the backdrop is a challenging environment. We've had to wrestle with COVID, a spectacular disruptor, which brought material, economic, industrial, social challenges. Just as it seems that we are recovering from that, a fresh wave of risks and threats reference Russia's war in Ukraine, the ignition of inflation, where the United States, parts of Europe, the UK, are dealing with close to double-digit inflation, numbers that we haven't seen since the 1980s. After a decade and more of close to zero interest rates, some of the world's biggest markets are starting to move into a hiking interest rate environment. And for many people, this represents material business risk. This inflation threat, I would venture, is a talking point of this morning, where what we've got going on in some of the world's biggest economies is the fallout or the consequence of printing of money, fiscal spending, handing out salary supports, wage supports, and then supply chain blockages. All three of these, I would venture, are talking points to industries of all shape and nature, but is of unquestionably interest in the conversation today. It brings challenges to workforces, to supply chains, to customer expectations. The launch of the Building Africa report also happens to coincide with Africa Day. And that moment should not be lost, or that aspect should not be lost, in that PPC as a Pan-African business works in some of the markets that make up this extraordinary continent where the Center for African Management and Markets works. So, in talking about, or just in referencing this as a backdrop to our Building Africa report, where are the most pyramids in Africa? If we're going to go and build pyramids historically, where would we find the most pyramids in Africa? This is a business school classroom participation moment. Shout back at me. The Sudan. And I think that is, how on earth do you know that? Okay, wonderful. You're not supposed to know that. That's the spoiler. And if you'd asked me this yesterday afternoon, I would have shouted back to you, Egypt. That's the obvious answer. Well, it's Sudan. Africa is full of surprise. Where are you likely to pay the most for data in Africa? South Africa. Some people are emphatic. If you find yourself in Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, you are Chad, you are likely to pay 20% of an average monthly earnings to get 1 gigabyte of data. 20% of your monthly earnings for 1 gig of data. There is an imperative. There's also opportunity, and these numbers are well broadcast, but we know that the investment in infrastructure in a Pan-African context makes up about 3.5% of GDP, where the requirement is in the order of 7%. If we look at the experiences of India, China, and historically other impressive Southeast Asian and East European advances, where it's been the habit to get into the business of 5, 6, 7% of GDP. So that speaks to a substantial step up that's required. But there's also a paradox. And the paradox is, whilst there is this incredible investment opportunity, 80% of projects that are presented don't get past the feasibility stage. 80% of projects across African markets do not get past feasibility. And so therein lies the paradox and the opportunity for solution. In the words of strategy, we need to get from the business of where the rubber hits the sky to the rubber hitting the road. So how do we turn all of this conversation and idea and talk about opportunity into a business reality? The infrastructure deficit means that 34% of population in Africa do not have immediate access to road, and that the cost of transport in Africa is 2 times the global average. Now, I know that talking about Africa as if it were a place is a very superficial statement. But if we take these 30,000 feet observations about the missing infrastructure, that deficit in infrastructure spend, the huge gap between project proposals and project delivery, and the fact that just 1/3 of the population has immediate access to road, and that when you have that access to road, it's 2 times cost of global average, speaks about the incredible work that needs to be done, the opportunity, wrestling with the paradoxes, and turning information or knowledge into insight, that if you're going to build pyramids, they've probably been in Sudan.